So good morning. Today we're going to talk about P6-Scrubber and how it can help you move projects from one P6 database to another. I'm Ian Nicholson. I'm VP Solutions of Emerald Associates. I work in a number of industries. Most of my time these days is taken up with doing risk work, but I've been using Primavera for many, many years, and I've always struggled with import and export. Joining me today is Sue Familia. Sue's in Wyoming, and Sue's got many years of experience and has many years of frustration dealing with import and export with Primavera as well. So let's talk about why we struggle with imports and exports. So when Primavera initially came up with the idea of the XERs, their idea was really that you would export a project out for your own use. They didn't really think about people would be sending XERs all over the place and sharing them and passing them from owners to contractors to subcontractors and then back to contractors and back to owners again. And all along the way, picking up all kinds of extra data. So they assumed that everybody wanted to pretty much import everything and that everything would line up. But the reality is it doesn't always work that way. You know, my 5-day-a-week calendar might be different than your 5-day-a-week calendar, or my activity code for responsibility might be different than yours, or I might have extra codes that you don't really care about. And what happens is as we pass around these XERs, all this extra data gets passed around as well, and it creates all these extra records in our systems. Now, when you do import an XER or an XML file, and that could be a Microsoft Project XML file or a Primavera XML file, you have a few options in Primavera. I mean, the first thing is that you can tell it update existing, which basically means overwrite if there's already the record there, which is a problem with calendars because now my global calendar has been changed from what it was originally, and all my projects potentially are going to schedule wrong. You can have do not import, which has the opposite problem. Then now the project I'm importing potentially has the wrong calendar. And this comes across all the time, and we run across this constantly with people who are doing imports. So wouldn't it be nice if you could just take those files and clean them up? Well, some of our clients actually have a scrubbing database, and all they use it for is to import XER files, delete all the stuff they don't want, and then export it and import it into their main database. But that takes a lot of time and effort. It's a very manual process. It would just be so much easier if we had an automated way to get rid of the data we don't want and ensure that the data we do want is properly aligned with our data. Now, I mentioned, one of the solutions that we have, so when we do the import process, we have a third option, and the third option is import new. So import new is the safe approach, right? So what it does is instead of overwriting my existing calendar or overwriting the import calendar, it makes a new calendar. So that's safe, right? Well, the problem with that is now my system's getting polluted, and now instead of one 5-day-a-week calendar, I have hundreds of them. And instead of one activity code that represents responsibility or discipline or something, I've got 20 of them. And then people don't know which one to use because there's all these different items that all have very similar names, or they have like -1, -2, -3 behind them, and nobody's really sure which one is the right one. So we end up with our system getting completely polluted and jammed up with all this extra data. And a lot of times what happens is, if you're a contractor and you want to pass information up to the owner, maybe there's certain information that you want to share and certain information that you don't want to share. So maybe before I send an XER out, I want to scrub it myself. So I want to remove some information that I don't want to share. Oftentimes we see contractors maintaining two different schedules, one that they use for their own use and one they give to the owner. Well, that's doubling the amount of work you have to do each month to update them and to keep them both aligned. There's all this reconciliation work that you have to do. Again, if I use a tool like P6-Scrubber, I can just remove the data I don't want to share as I go. So this obviously is a huge benefit. It's going to be a big time saver. It's going to make sure that my database doesn't get corrupted or full of junk that eventually I either have to create a project to clean, or I just need to dump it all and move to a new database, which is what a lot of people end up doing. Every 5 years or so, they just make a new database and they archive the old one and move on. And when that one gets full, they do the same thing over and over again. It's kind of like moving out of your house when you get too much junk collected in the garage. Yeah, just move away and just leave it all behind. So what we want to do is we want to use a better approach. We want to have a way to actually clean all this stuff up and just deal with all that extra data as we go. And every time we do an import, we can just use the same process and just keep scrubbing it each way. So whether it goes in or goes out, we can scrub it. So let's talk about how it works. So the first thing is you select the file that you want to scrub. So it could be a file someone sent me, or it could be a file I'm going to send someone else. I can select that. And then I also have the option to manually choose what gets brought over. Or what I can do is I can create a scrubbing definition file. And that's really useful if I'm going to be getting the same update or the same file every week or every 2 weeks from a contractor, for example. And I know what's going to be in there, and I know what I want to keep, and I know what I want to get rid of. Well, I can create this definition file, and I can just run this against the definition file, and it'll do the same cleanup every time. Now, the system will also check for things like POBS or risk type records. Now, Oracle's pretty much resolved this issue, but for years, every time you'd bring in an XER, it would create either POBS records and or risk type records, and that stuff would just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so we check for that. So if someone has an older version of P6 that has this, for want of a better word, crap in it, the system will warn you and clean it out. It'll also look for conflicts between the calendars that are in the XER file versus the ones that are in your system. Similarly, it will map out your UDFs, your codes, your cost codes, all those kind of things that you may or may not want, and you can actually decide, yeah, I need these, or no, I don't want them. Now you can also do validation. So maybe you've got rules about how you want your structure to be, or maybe you've got some naming conventions that you want to maintain, those sorts of things. So in Scrubber, you can validate the data as well. Now this isn't as sophisticated as a tool like our P6 tool, which actually actively monitors your whole system and warns you about problems. This only will run when you bring an XER in, but hey, it's a good first step, right? If I'm not importing something that doesn't conform to my standards, then hopefully I can maintain my standards more easily. All right, so let's take a look. I'm going to turn this over to Sue, and Sue's actually going to do a demo. And I'll join you at the end. Okay, Sue.
All right.
Control.
I have it. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. I'm going to share my screen so we can kind of just take a look at P6-Scrubber kind of live. I guess it is live. So with P6-Scrubber, although I only have one database that is connected to this instance of P6-Scrubber, you can point it at several different databases. So if you're importing into databases and you have several in your repertoire, so to speak, you can point it to each one of those. So depending on which database you're going to be importing to, you are able to compare with that database. So I'm just going to use of course, my demo database and go in and sign into P6-Scrubber. Now, P6-Scrubber uses the API or web services, depending on the deployment of it. And so anyone who is a user in your P6 environment can also use P6-Scrubber. So, or you can add people, even if they're outside. So you can have maybe, someone who is responsible for scrubbing them prior to importing them in, and then they hand them off to who is going to actually do the importing. So you do have some options there. Now, we have several topics, if you will, that we can handle with P6-Scrubber. We have project topics, activities, resources, calendars. We've added notebook topics, roles, cost accounts, OBS, etc. So we're going to go over these and just see how we can handle these for our XERs and XMLs prior to importing them into our P6 environments. Now, again, as Ian said, this is so that we can kind of keep our own environments clean and we don't have someone else's data in there that we don't want. Now, the easiest way to build a definition is to use a file that you actually do want to import. So I'm going to use that feature here. I have the ability to import files, and I can just browse out to the file that I want to scrub and open it, and then tell P6-Scrubber to import this. Now, what this does is it allows me to see exactly what's in that particular project, and then I can decide how to handle that information. So I'm going to start with my project and WBS area here. For the most part, if it's the same type of data, say a code, a validation of a name, or a user-defined field, it will handle it the same no matter what data type you're looking at. Now, with IDs and names, we have that available at both the activity and the project levels. What this will do is this will validate something that you may have set out as a spec, maybe for your contractors. They need to follow this particular pattern when they name or put an ID on a project and they provide it to you. So the first thing you want to do with any of these modules is to enable them. So you need to tell P6-Scrubber which ones do you want to handle. So if I don't have any specifications for my contractors or for a file when I receive it for my ID and the name, I would simply leave this disabled. Now, in my case, I do want to check this. So I have a specification for a project ID. So I can choose how I want to build out that pattern so that P6-Scrubber can check this every time it runs on a file. Now, I have a pattern that I need several pieces of information to build that pattern. I could do a contains, a start with, an ends with. I could do some advanced items. However, I do find that the majority of all specifications, I guess, you are able to define those with a simple pattern. So I'm going to build out my pattern. So first of all, I am looking for a letter, and that letter is uppercase. And not only is it one letter, but it's two letters. So two uppercase letters. So I'm going to do any letter, uppercase, and look for two of them. Now, after that, I am expecting to see 5 digits, 5 numbers. So I can click again. I can say, all right, I need to have 5 numbers in here. Then I need to see a dash. So I'm looking for a specific character. So I want to, or specific text in this case. So I'm going to go to specific text, and I just need the one dash in there. And then after that, it really doesn't matter. It's some sort of description or something like that I am expecting to see. But I do want to say, okay, it doesn't just end at the dash. I have any character that can be there. Now, in order to denote an unlimited amount of characters or numbers or whatever you're defining, you would put 0. So this will allow any number of characters afterwards. Now, that's where I need to end. That's what I want to check for. if I go to this box over here where it says test my pattern, well, right now my pattern is not passing the test at this point because it is I don't have anything there. However, if I were to go in and I were to grab or type in the pattern that I'm expecting, I can check. I can make sure that I have defined this correctly and that anything that I put in there that might be fitting my pattern, I can check it. So again, this is only to check. It is not to change anything at all in your file. The rest of the items are, you can change, but this is just for a check. This is a checkpoint to say the ID and name or name for either my project or my activities can be checked. So I've defined that. Now I'm going to go into the codes. Now with codes, I'm going to see basically a table that's going to show me the code itself. What is the name of the code? I'm going to enable this so I can work with it. Now I see in my district that if I look across here, I can see that the district is actually a code, a project code in my database because this is linked to my database that I'm going to import this in. So it's giving me a matching check mark. Yes, it is. However, I can see over on the left that I do have a warning. I have that yellow yield sign. Now, if I hover over that, it's going to kind of coach me and tell me, hey, what's wrong with this? There's a problem, but what is the problem? So it's telling me my dictionary validation has failed. Now, as with all of our codes, we have a dictionary that is associated with it. So what I can do to see the dictionary values in this file is I can expand that plus sign on my district, and I can see that I have DIST5 as a code that's coming in, and it is not matching what I have in my P6. Now, I know I have that, obviously, and I know I have a district 5, but obviously I have it defined differently. So I can go and in this value, this new code type value, I can go and I can search. So if I delete this out of here, the first column is my original for both my value and my district. Then it's going to give me either a remap or if I need to change it in some place. So I can see that in my database, I call it D5. So I'm going to select D5. The description is the same. And so it's validating it and saying, yep, that's what's in your system. So it's going to remap this DIST5 into the D5 value that I have. Now, I've handled everything on my district. Now I have this client type. Well, it's telling me you don't have that in your database. Well, I don't really want to bring that in because I don't use that client type. So I can choose in this action area to either keep or scrub or remove that code. So I'm going to choose to scrub it. And then when I click off, my warning goes away. Now the rest of these are just telling me, yep, these are in there. These came in new with this file. I'm checking these for the first time. Now in my user defined fields, works very similarly. I can enable it. I can handle different levels of user defined fields. Now at the project level, I have my project and my WBS that are being handled at this level. Now, as I look through, I can see I've got, most of them match up and I'm doing okay. But let's say on this submitted file name, I have something similar to that, but it's not called that. It's actually called something else. So I am going to go in here and I'm going to look for it. Oh, it's called submittal file name. So I'm going to choose it and I'm going to remap that user defined field to the user defined field the way that I have it defined in my database. Now with WBS, this isn't something that I need. I do have it in my database, but this is a different type. They're putting something else in here. I shouldn't be getting this at all. So I'm going to tell P6 or P6-Scrubber that I want to remove that WBS. Now, in addition to that, I have the option up here on this scrub XER UDFs in the subject area. I have the option to say anything that's not defined in my settings down here. If it comes in, I want to remove it. I want to scrub it out. So I don't want any other WBS user-defined fields coming in. So I'm going to check mark this, and it's going to, if on subsequent scrubs, so running another file, if it has any additional WBS UDFs, it's going to delete them out. I could do the same with my project user-defined fields as well. Now, activities, of course, have different levels, activity codes. So the ID works the same. So let me go back to that, I guess. But the codes have different levels. So when it is imported in, it's going to show you what is in the file and the level that it's at. So I have this scope here that is telling me what level it's at. Now with mitigations, I can see I have an issue. So I'm just going to go down the row and I'm going to handle these. So I can go, okay, mitigation. It looks like my dictionary validation failed. But you know, this isn't the same mitigation that I have, because these aren't things that I usually use. Like this calendar change, it's not mine. So what I can do with this is that I want to keep it in case I need it later, but I want to roll it down to the project level. So I can do that. In this roll down area here on my mitigations, I can choose to open that and check mark it. Now that's going to tell P6-Scrubber that I don't want this mitigations to be a global code. I want it to be a project code, and it's going to assign that project code to the project that it is used in. Now, in addition, I want to keep these and I want to allow those to come in at that project level. So I do want to keep this dictionary as well. Now it doesn't match, but what I can do is I can say, all right, I know that this doesn't match anything in mine, but I want to allow it to come in. So I'm going to star it, and it's going to allow that dictionary value to come in. Now, if I had a whole long line of dictionary values that were not in my database and I was creating maybe a new code in my database, I could use this accept all values. And what that's going to do is it's going to go and it's going to start everything in the list so that I don't have to go one by one and pick them up. So I've handled my mitigations, and I want to handle my vendors here. Now with my vendors, it's telling me that it couldn't find a value that is vendor in my database. But because I do have this little light bulb here, it has something similar. So it's going to tell me, hey, you don't have this one exactly, but you have something that has vendor in it. So I can go in and I can search in my vendor area, and oh, this is where I want it. I have this P6-Scrub vendor, and that's the one I want to use at the global level for this particular code. Let's say discipline. You know, I don't really want that. I don't want that to come in. Again, it's something that's different from what I have. So I want to remove that completely. Oh. So I've done that as well. Now I've handled everything in my code area. Now, in addition, just like I had in my user-defined fields, I have some options here. Now, with any code type, regardless of whether it's projects, activities, or resources, I can choose to remove any additional codes that come in. And that would be this little check mark here. I could also, at the activity level, decide, do I want to keep the code that comes in at the global level and just roll that down if it's not defined in here as well? So I have two options. I can remove it, or I can keep it and roll it down to the project level. So you have that ability to do that. Now, one thing I don't need to do in this particular one is, in some cases, maybe your contractor has provided the code. Well, let's say we do. I have this work type activity, and that is not a project code in my, they're providing it. I told them they needed to provide it, but that is not at my project level. That's actually at my global level, and I want to move it to that global level. I can choose to promote it. So I can come here and I can change, I can check mark it. And what that's going to do is it's going to promote this work type activity to my global level. And then it's going to, I'll be able to display that at the global level. And this matches what's at my global level. User-defined fields for activities are pretty much the same. But the subject areas that are in the activity area are activities, expenses, steps, issues, and risks. So I have user-defined fields at each one of those levels, and I can choose what I want to do with them. So maybe I just want to remove anything that is expense or steps or issues or risks. Now, resources. So resources, we have the ability to remap our resources to another resource. So maybe they have a dictionary that handles everything that you need, but you don't want it to collide with what you have in your dictionaries. First of all, it's going to check them. I can see with my barricades, I have something going on. Well, these are, I have, yeah, barricades is okay. I see that there. But if I go into my name, so you have to have both that match. I can find that actually in my database, I have barricades misspelled. But for now, I want to allow that to come in. So I'm going to select it. Now, probably I'm going to want to go out into my database and I'm going to correct the spelling on that so it does match up. But in this case, I just need to get this in, and I'm going to go ahead and allow it to come in with that misspelled name. Now I can see I've got several user-defined fields that are, I'm sorry, yeah, wrong place, resources that are associated. And so I have several pages. So I can go and I can take a look at this. Another option we have provided is that for our resources, I can choose where I want that resource, those resources to land in my resource dictionary. So I have a parent tree that I want to put this in. And I can go and search it, and I'm going to put it into this P6-Scrubber. So this has already been established in my P6 database as a parent. And when I import all of these resources, I'm going to land those resources under this parent called P6-Scrubber. So I can tell it, where do I want to put those resources when I import them? Now with codes, they work pretty much very much the same in that, you know, you're going to decide to keep or scrub them. You can remap. It's going to tell you whether it matches and whether you have any kind of dictionary issues as well. So I'm just going to go in and handle this one. Oh, and let's say in this case, maybe I want it to combine, and I want that to actually go in with my Canada. These could go in the same, and I can map it to the same one. Okay. Let's see. User-defined fields work the same, and we also have units of measure. So in your dictionaries, you probably have abbreviations and names of what those units of measure are. That doesn't mean that somebody else has the same abbreviation or name that they put on their dictionary values for their units of measure. But you can keep yours tidy by coming in and just saying, okay, I need to take a look at this. It looks like it's got linear feet is lowercase, and it's actually called linear feet. And then my M3, I have it, but it's an uppercase M, so I'm going to clean that up. It's still telling me it's not matching, so I need to make sure that my name matches as well. So I'm going to keep my dictionary for my units of measure cleaned up. I'm not going to have multiples for my cubic meters or my linear feet or what have you. I'm going to keep that tidy. Calendars. You are able to roll global calendars down. So when Ian was talking during the slide portion, he talked about the standard 5-day work week. Just about everybody has the standard 5-day work week in their P6 database. That is a defined calendar. And it was delivered a certain way with your database. However, that doesn't mean that someone hasn't gone in and changed that definition. Maybe they've added holidays to it. Maybe they've, changed the number of hours per day. Who knows? But if you import that with a project and it is at the global level and yours is at the global level and the same exact name, their definition of that calendar will overwrite yours. That's not good in that case. It's going to mess up projects that have that calendar assigned to it or activities. So you want to be sure that you are not overwriting a calendar in your database at the global level. So I can choose calendar by calendar if I want to roll them down. So I'm probably just going to be safe and I'm going to roll all of these down. Now, if I have any subsequent calendars that come in, I have another global calendar that has been created and comes in with a project. When I use this particular definition, I can choose to roll down any additional global calendar as well. So I'm protecting myself. I'm making sure that I don't have a global calendar coming in to my database and changing what I already have there. I'm protecting myself. Now I do have an area for project calendars. Now this is just informational. We did have a client who decided that they would really like to see what project calendars were in there. They had some particular project calendars that they were expecting to see, and they wanted to validate that, verify that. You can also choose to remap a resource calendar. So we can't remove it because it is obviously assigned to a resource. But if you have a calendar that you have that is the same and you want to use that without creating a new resource calendar, you can go and you can do that. You could remap it. You could rename it if you wanted to. Now, another thing that we added for a client were notebook topics. So there's a ton of notebook topics out there. And if you've cleaned yours up and you only have a couple that your organization uses, and you don't want a ton from any other organization coming in, you can see what's there. And in this case, I don't have any notebook topics, but I could. And if that was the case, I could choose what to do with them. Do I want to remove them? Do I want to allow them to come in because I want to see those notes and those notebook topics? I can see if I have any that match what I already have out here. So really, these screens work very similarly across the board. So once you're kind of familiar with the action and the original name and what you want to have it come in as, it's very, very clear on how to work all the rest of the screens. Now, roles, they work very much like resources. It's just at the role level. So I can choose to remap them. Again, I could choose a parent to land those roles in, so I can keep it tidy. I know that these came in with this particular contractor's files or whatever, and handle those as well. Cost accounts, again, very similar. I have my ID. I could remap it. I could choose to just not have them come in at all, whatever. So I have that ability to handle cost accounts as well. So maybe you don't use the cost accounts and you don't need them. You can delete them out. Now, OBS. What this is intended for is to keep your OBS structure clean. If you import a project that has an OBS that matches somebody else's database, what it's going to do is it's going to put that OBS element in your OBS table. And you don't necessarily want that because you have your own responsible managers and OBS elements that you use for your own projects. You don't want theirs. So what you can do here is you can drill down and you can find, what OBS element do you want to do? And once you are, went to the wrong place. Once you have that, you can choose it. And then it's going to replace that responsible manager with one of your valid OBS elements. So you can keep your OBS structure clean. I do see in databases that I work with, a lot of OBS structures that become very convoluted and messy because of this, because of importing other OBS elements from other entities into yours. Now, finally, I have this simple scrub area. And the simple scrub area is kind of a quick and dirty way to scrub a file, if you will. Maybe you want to handle pieces of information like your project code, all or none. This is where you would do it. Instead of stick handling it up at each one of the levels, you could stick handle it, or you could say, I want to just not import any of them at all. I could choose to prefix them. So if you wanted to prefix them before they came in, maybe I want to do an SCR for Scrubber in here. Then I know, okay, this came in with this file because it's got this prefix on it. But this is an all or none type of thing. You cannot go one by one on this one. So we did establish that for that for that purpose. I can choose a common separator. So maybe between the prefix and whatever the name is, I want a dash. I can choose that. Maybe at my global levels for both my activity or my calendars, maybe I want to handle them all. And I just want to say, I want to roll them all down. No matter what comes in, I want to roll it down to the project level, or yes, to the project level. So you can handle them all or none here. Same thing with your resource codes, your role codes, resource assignment codes, UDFs. You can choose to not import roles or resources. So that would mean it would remove those from your file, all or none. You can handle resource shifts and resource curves here. So you do have that ability to do kind of a blanket, if you will, handling of some of that data. Now, once I have everything set on how I want to scrub this file, I need to save that definition, because that definition is going to be used to then go and look at a file and tell it and make the changes of how that definition was laid out. So I'm going to go to the Save and Load Definitions. It's down in the lower right-hand corner here. And when I do that, you can see I've already got some definitions out here. So I'm building a new one. This is one that I need in addition to what's out here already. So I can do a Save As, and I could name it. And I could put some notes in. And I can also choose a level in which to save this at. So we have 3 levels. One level is your personal level. Of course, that's the one that only you can see. If you save it here, you are the only one who can utilize that definition. Now, global, of course, is everyone who uses P6-Scrubber who can see that. Now, you do have to be an admin to create a global definition for your organization. And then we have the idea of teams. So a team might be, you have different business units throughout your organization, and they are dealing with different types of projects, maybe different contractors, whatever. You could assign the user to a team, and then anytime they build a definition for their team, they could save it to their team. So I'm just going to give you an example here. So I want to save it for a team. And when I open this up, it's going to tell me, okay, which team do you want to save it to? Now, I'm going to save it to my Acme contractor. So what that means is when I do save this, the people who are assigned to that team, Acme contractor, they are going to be able to see this definition, but no one else. If they don't have that Acme contractor assigned to them, they're not going to be able to save it or see it, excuse me, after I save it. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. Now, if I go back and look, I have it in my list of saved. Now I can tell what's a team and what's global and what's my individual because of the icon next to it. Of course, global is my world icon there. The 2 people is my team, and the single is myself. So once I have these built out here, and I'm coming in, and I don't want to have to set this up again. I just want to apply what I have already defined. The way that I do that is I would come and I would open this save and load definitions. I would choose the one I want to use, and I would say to load it. Now it's going to ask me, oh, it didn't in this case, because I probably had that other one already saved. If I had not saved my changes, it would come in and it would say, hey, are you sure you want to X out everything that is already applied in your definition with that new definition? But it didn't do that because I had already saved it. Now I have it applied, and I can see that I have my demo definition up here at the top in my green bar. I have my demo definition. That's the one that is applied. Now I want to scrub a file with that. So I'm going to go and I'm going to choose the scrub file button. And at the top, I'm going to go and browse to that file that I want to scrub. And if I wanted to do several at a time, I could certainly do that. I could choose them, with a control click and then open them. It's going to line them up, and then it's going to process them. So it's going to use the definition that I applied on both of those projects or files. And I can see which definition was used, and I can see which file was scrubbed. Now, I probably want to check and take a look at what happened when P6-Scrubber scrubbed that file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to view the report. When I click that, it's going to open up an HTML file in my browser, and it's going to give me a summary at the top of what happened when P6-Scrubber scrubbed my file. And if I want to dig in a little bit deeper, what I can do is I can scroll down and I can see for my project ID and my project name. Looks like I had something set out here, and it's green. It passed. It was fine. Those matched the way that they should have. Because remember, project ID, project and activity ID, and project and activity name, these are just a check. It's a pass or a fail. Now, as I get down to my project code, I can tell that there were changes. We have a not clean there, meaning there were changes made. The gray boxes are the definition, what you defined in your definition used to scrub. As you scroll down, the boxes with the color in them are the ones that are telling you what happened when P6-Scrubber changed that data or didn't change that data. So I can see my client, it was removed in this case. My client type as well was removed. It was scrubbed out. Now with my district, it was here. It was everything was good with it. However, I did have a dictionary, that a dictionary value or values that were handled. So if I go down and I look here, I've got my dictionary for my district, and I can see where my DIST5 was remapped to D5, and it's telling me it was remapped. Now in my type of schedule, it looks like I've got it remapped to a new code called schedule status, and it was remapped. And in my dictionary, because it was remapped, I actually had to add a value to that dictionary as well. And it will go down and tell you case by case what happened with that scrub. Now, if I'm satisfied with the way that P6-Scrubber handled that, I can simply X out of this and I can download the results. Now, if I'm not, I would want to go back and adjust my definition to make sure that it was handling that data the way that I wanted it to. But in my case, I'm happy with the results, and I'm going to download those. Let me move this over here. So I've got this downloaded. I would, of course, need to I would need to extract these in order to import in, but I am given two files when I download. I've got my scrubbed file that is clean here, and I've got an HTML file of that report that we looked at in our browser. So if I were wanting to share maybe a portion of those findings to, let's say, my contractor, give them some feedback, I could copy and paste out of there, or I could do the entire report if I wanted to as well. But I would say that I probably just want to share with them what I found as an anomaly and what needs to be fixed. So I could copy and paste that, put it in an email into, a report by itself, and then send it off back to my contractor and give them some feedback. So finally, I would want to import that, of course, into my database. And I've already imported several files here that have been run through Scrubber. Now, I've got some information that comes in with that scrubbed file. First of all, I have the ability to bring in some user-defined fields for some indicators here. And this is telling me what P6-Scrubber did. Was something clean? Was it handled? Was it changed or deleted or whatever? So the X's are telling me that P6-Scrubber handled some code types here, my project code types. So it also handled something in my project code dictionary. That X is telling me that. In my calendars, you can see this one at the top, it didn't handle any of the calendars, so everything was clean on my calendars, but these other two, I probably rolled them down, is what I'm thinking there. So it's going to give you these really easy to read indicators as to what happened. Additionally, you're going to be given a notebook. And that notebook is going to be a copy, again, of your report that you were looking at. Now, this is going to be good because if you have any kind of claims or anything like that, you have a history and an exact accounting of what was done when that file was imported, so that you have that backup or that history on that particular file. Not only do I have this at the project level, but if I go into my activities, I can also display those indicators for each one of my items that were handled. So in this case, I can see that I had my vendor codes and everything was good with those. I didn't have anything that was changed or anything like that. On my work type, it looks like I had some items that were there, but they were removed. So I might want to check those, and it's giving me that caution sign. Hey, you know, the way that your definition was set up, you removed whatever was assigned here. So I might want to go back and I might want to take a look at this and assign them either the way that they should be, or maybe check my definition and make sure that you know, whatever was handled was, yeah, that is what I wanted to have happen. And then it looks like I've got something that was remapped in this case on my discipline. And it looks like I had an activity user defined field that was handled as well. And then my cost accounts were okay, and my values and all that were good to go there. So you can have those things come in. Now, because the idea is to keep your database clean, maybe you don't want these indicators to come in. Maybe you don't want those created when you scrub your file. You do have the option to say you don't want that. So I'm going to just close this down, and I'm going to go to this general area. There's a few things we can do in this general area. One is decide whether we want to include a notebook with that report in it or those indicators. So maybe you want the notebook, but you don't necessarily want more indicators and more user-defined fields in your database. You could turn that off, save it with your definition, and it's going to go and not create those, but it will create the notebook. So when you import it, you'll have the notebook, no indicators. Now, I can also override the file version. If you receive a file, an XER that is created with a higher version than the version of P6 that you have, you need to demote that basically. If you don't, you are not going to be able to import it into that lower version of your database. Might be the same if you're sending it out. If you're sending that out to somebody and you know that they have a database version that's lower, you might want to demote that before you send it out. So essentially, you just open it up, you choose what version you want to demote it to, and then it will handle that for you when you scrub the file. Now, we do have some additional things down here. You do have a task maximum time to live. That means that a task will expire after a certain time period if a value is configured and it's not 0. That is something we had to handle because of the API in P6, and so we've added that here. You can decide what you want to do with that. We also have the ability to say, I don't want any negative durations to come in. So you can see here, negative durations may occur in the XML or XER file, but these are not, negative durations aren't allowed in more recent versions of P6. So you need to, if you do have a version that it's bumping up against and you're getting this, you might want to enable that and take those negative durations out of your file as well. So that is a very kind of down and dirty, quick way to show you P6-Scrubber. Do we have any questions that have arisen since we came up? Doesn't look like it. So Ian, I'll turn it back to you and we'll wrap up.
Okay, I'm just going to take control. Okay, so just a quick summary, right? You can scrub your UDF types. You can do your calendars. You can roll them down. You can do all kinds of different things with your calendars. You can do code validation, look for missing code types, values, allowed values or illegal values. And you get the summaries when you're done. You can output to notebook topics, HTML file, email messages, etc. So let's just talk a little bit about some of the benefits and ROI that we get with P6-Scrubber. So the first one is it's a huge time saver. I mean, we have clients who, as I mentioned before, import a project into their scrubbing database, clean everything up, and then have to export it again. And everybody hates doing it because it takes forever. It's prone to making mistakes. And, it's just a miserable job. So this really saves a lot of time. It's also configurable, so it makes things easy, right? You don't have to keep recreating the wheel each time. You do it once and you're good to go. It helps you keep your system clean, so you don't have to go and do these major system cleanups or dump the database and create a new one from time to time. And it also helps you get everything accurately done because you don't have to worry about messing up your system with a bad import or getting a poor mapping or things like that, because the system will take care of all those things for you. Emerald Associates can help you with your other issues around Primavera as well. So we are a full service partner for Primavera. We deal with the tools. We deal with Primavera software, their systems, the Oracle Cloud. We have our own add-on tools for Oracle products. We do implementation, integration, training. We provide cloud services. And as it says on the right, we do full Primavera training, and we also do training for Safran software. So just let us know how we can help. So I don't see any questions at this point. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw up Sue's contact information. So if you do have any questions, you can reach out to Sue. Also, for anybody who might be outside North America, Donna's contact information is there. Donna's our rep in the Philippines. And you can reach out to her if that works better for your time zone. And with that, if there's no questions, we'll wrap it up. We're just about right on time. So thanks for joining us today. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Sue and she'll get them answered for you.